Okay, sound check one, two, three. If you guys can hear me, go ahead and just put it in the chat box that you can hear what I'm saying. So that way I know we're good to go. All right, Chad, thank you very much. I appreciate it, brother. All right, get myself set here, got some water, and we're gonna go ahead and get started. So this time I'm actually recording because I made a mistake last time. I forgot to press the button. I've already confirmed that it's recording. So I just want to welcome everyone to the encore presentation of Anyone Can Be a Speaker tonight. So I know we're going to have people from all across the world here, just as we did last time. I believe there was about 3 continents that were represented. So I'm really excited. And I know for some of you guys, it's definitely quite late, but I'm extremely thankful that you've decided to take the time out to invest in yourself and learn the key fundamentals on how to be a better speaker. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Mike Almeida. I'm the president and CEO of F3 Performance Group. And our company focuses on helping individuals and organizations recognize their full potential by eliminating self-sabotage, enhancing communication skills, and also inspiring growth through results. Now, I can tell you that I didn't start out this way, and far from it actually. I actually began my career as an Army officer, and I can remember the first time where I failed to communicate effectively. It was during my second combat deployment in Iraq, and had recently came to a new unit that was a unit of door kickers. And what I mean by that is this particular unit, their main focus in life was to break down the door and capture the enemy. Now, I had come from a unit of very technically smart people. So having the computer science background that I did, it was very easy for me to communicate with these people because they understood technical language. But what I recognized very quickly was that in this new unit, they didn't understand that same technical language, and I had to determine, okay, how can I get my message across? And it reminds me, my battalion executive officer, we'll call him Major Blue, just for namesake and to protect the innocent. Major Blue had gotten a virus on his computer, and I got wind of it from one of my many bosses up at the brigade level, which is one level higher. And she told me that it was on the secure network, which meant that it could cause a lot of damage and we had to take care of it immediately. So I took my best soldier that is really smart and very capable of communicating with Major Blue, and I asked him to go ahead and let him know what needed to be done with his computer, make sure everything was covered that he needed so that way we could put him back in operation as quickly as possible. And so Specialist McMurray went over to Major Blue and did everything he needed to do. And I even followed up with Major Blue. I said, sir, Specialist McMurray has done everything he needs to do. It's going to take him about 4 hours. Is there anything that you're unclear about? And he goes, no, I got it. I'm straight. Go ahead, do what you got to do. So 4 hours later, Specialist McMurray gets his computer back to him, and I'm assuming everything's great. Now, if you could picture this, my office was about maybe 3 meters from Major Blue's office, about 15 feet. I see my phone ring, and it says Major Blue on it. So I said, what's going on, sir? He goes, hey, I need you to come to my office really quick. So I said, okay. So I got up out of my seat, walked over there. And then the next thing that Major Blue said to me really stunned me. He looks me square in the eyes, and he says, Captain Almeida, when you said you were going to back up everything, you promised me that, right? And I said, of course, sir. He said, what seems to be the problem? He goes, well, I had some documents in my recycle bin on my computer there, a desktop, that are very important to me that I was working on for hours, and I need them, and I can't find them. And I could remember just looking at him in the face, in my mind thinking, are you serious? Are you kidding me? But he really didn't understand. Like, to his mind, in his simple mind, everything that was on his old computer should have been back there. And so I bring up that story because everyone needs help in their communicating. And I think it's actually something that everyone should spend time on. So we're going to look at how you develop your speaking skills. And this is going to be interactive. It's a workshop, okay? So there will be times where I'll ask questions, or I may ask you to participate. That's where you can use the webinar chat to go ahead and answer the questions that I ask, so we can get everyone in a participation mode. And you're going to be getting involved. So you're going to look at how to develop your speaking skills, and then we're going to look at the competition. By the end we're going to have some friendly competition. But by the end, I want you to be thinking about the fact that you too should be developing your speaking skills, and you should spend a little bit of time working on developing your speaking skills. Okay? So by a show of hands, and you guys can raise your hand in the button back there, who here tonight believes that they're a natural speaker? Who would say they're a natural speaker in the moment? Okay. We got one. Okay, natural speaker, one. Okay. Who would say that whatever the complete opposite of a natural speaker is, that's what you are? So the complete opposite of a natural speaker, who would say it? Okay, so we got two. Okay, so we got one and two. Okay, so what are the rest of you then? Now, many people don't like the idea of speaking, but if you think about your communication skills in the history of mankind on this planet, communication skills are exceptional for everyone, and they really are. It's plateaued for most of us, but most people stop developing their speaking skills, but they don't have to. You can keep developing your speaking skills, and that's really what I want to look at. How do we do that, first of all? So let's go ahead and do a quick exercise. If I can get, yeah, there we go. Let's do a quick exercise. So for most of you, these exercises are going to be simple, but if it's very useful, if you have a partner at home, go ahead and definitely connect with that partner and ask them if you could borrow them for a few minutes and just borrow them really quick. And if not, that's fine too. But because you can do this by yourself as well. So again, this is going to be very simple, but what I want you to do is I want you to stand up and I want you to reach out. And if you're with someone, hold the hands of the person in front of you. And if you don't have a partner, just reach your hands out, straight out, and pretend that you do, okay? Now, have your feet about shoulder width apart. Here we go. Just slightly. You'll be able to let go of your partner if you have it right away. But what I want you to do is lift up your right leg off the floor, okay? And then as soon as you feel comfortable, let go and balance on your own if you can. So bend your knee just up a bit higher, okay? I'm sure you can. If you can, lift it up just a little bit higher, okay? Bring your hands down by your sides. Okay, very good. Now I want you to do the same thing, but this time I want you to swap legs, okay? Try it on the other leg. Just lift your other leg up. Do the same thing. Lift it a little bit higher. Okay? Very good. Now, do you notice that when you do something as simple as that, do you notice that the foot that was on the ground is sort of tipping from side to side slowly? Now, some of you have good balance, and it's very teeny, imperceptible movements. But some of you are like, whoa, going all over the place, can't balance. But either way, it's the same process taking part. What part of you now is doing that? Are you thinking about it? Are you thinking, I need to move my foot from left to right in order to balance, or is it happening on its own? So really quickly type there. What do you think? Are you consciously thinking about it, or is it just happening on its own? We got some automatic, just happens. Okay. Does anybody think that they're doing it or their body's doing it? Everyone says happening on its own. Okay, that's interesting. So just to be sure, let's give the conscious mind something to do while we do that. So stand back up. Okay, look at your partner if you have one. I want you to lift up one of your legs off the floor, and we're going to keep your conscious mind busy by counting backwards from 47 by threes. Okay, you ready? So you're balancing, and I want you to start. So 47, 44, 41, 38. Keep going. Keep going. Okay. You can stop. That's enough. Go ahead and everybody sit down. So generally speaking, hopefully you guys got a good laugh out of that. Generally speaking, most of you are able to do this pretty easily because of where you got into your development of your balance. So you don't need to think about it consciously. Your body does this on its own. And the reason is because even though you're trying to balance, it's like a reflex. So it's actually subconscious. That's how you're able to do it. So now, were you born with this ability, though? Were you born with the ability to stand up and balance on one leg or not? Anybody? Yes, no, maybe? So Becky thinks you were born with your ability to balance on your leg. Julie says no. Okay, so Where does it come from then? If you're not born with it naturally, where does it come from? You have to learn it. And so how do you learn it? What does it take to learn? What are some things that it takes? To learn something that you can control and do, what does it take? It takes practice, correct. What else? Practice and what? Practice over what? A period of practice and skill over a period of, starts with a T. Time. All right. So we've got some that thinks practice and some that thinks time. And so what we can do is that the truth is we learn from our experience, practice from experience. And we really learn from those experiences, don't we? But do we always learn from those experiences? So what would you say if I said that we learn from our experiences? What would you say if I said we all learn from our experiences? That one statement. Truth? Okay, some people believe it. Okay. Some people say absolutely. Julie said absolutely. Okay, so this is very interesting. Now, by a show of hands, how many of you wear a watch? So raise your hand now if you wear a watch. How many of you guys are wearing a watch? Okay, Chad's wearing a watch. Andrew's wearing a watch. Okay, excellent. So for those of you wearing a watch, right now I want you to take the watch off whatever hand you have it on currently and put it on the other hand, or put it on the other wrist, okay? Now, it's gonna feel a bit weird initially because you're not used to it, especially the bigger watches, the bigger, the heavier ones. It's gonna feel very weird. Now, what are you gonna do in 10 minutes time? Even though intellectually you have the insight, you might say that you moved it from one hand to the other. What are you gonna do when you want to know what the time is in 10 minutes? Look at the wrong hand, exactly. You're going to look at that one that you had it on originally, and then you'll probably do it a few times, but it won't be long, maybe a couple of hours, maybe the rest of the day, and maybe even tomorrow, but eventually you'll be looking at the right hand, and that'll just be as comfortable as looking at it on the new hand, won't it? It's going to be very comfortable. Now, without insight, just through repetition, and not even emotion, which is normally the other thing that's necessary to really solidify in the subconscious, just through that repetition, we can do this. We learn from our experiences. So a good formula to understand here is we definitely learn in many different ways. We learn physically, but we also learn psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, physiologically. All kinds of different growth takes place. But we can just learn from repetition. So this is Esther, and Esther has quite an incredible story. Now, when she was born, she had a very rare chromosome abnormality, which it's basically to say she has learning difficulties. And her doctors predicted that she would have physical and intellectual problems, and they had very little answers for help. And so when she was first diagnosed, her parents were very distraught, but they found this book on what to do about your brain injured child by an author named Glenn Doman. And they immediately began reading the program. Now, Esther was about 9 months old when they got a hold of the book. And then when she was 12 months old, she still wasn't crawling. So you got to imagine, she's a year old, she's not crawling. So her parents went back to the book and they followed exactly what they learned. And they made an inclined floor to sort of help her teach her how to crawl. And then within 2 months of starting that, Esther actually began crawling for transportation. And then by the age of 17 months, so 5 months later, not only was she crawling, but she began creeping as well. And when they saw that growth, they went to this seminar from the book, What to Do About Your Brain Injured Child. They took the course. And there they said that the process that Esther goes through is the key to whether or not she's getting better and how quickly she develops. And so that's what the staff had said. And the guy there, he died recently, a couple years ago, Glenn Doman, he founded the Institute for the Achievement of Human Potential in 1955. So for about 60 years, that organization has helped brain-injured children and the parents of the brain-injured children. And he said something very powerful when he's alive, and it's a very, very brilliant quote. He says that the neurological organization is a process, and you can speed up that process or you can slow it down. And he said for children to develop, they need to learn to crawl. And you'll know this, they need to learn to crawl. In order to crawl, they need the opportunity to learn to crawl. So they say that children should be on the floor all the time, and they should be on the floor because when they're on the floor, and they should be face down or they're on the floor, when they're on the floor, they start to move their arms, and they move this arm and this leg, and then they'll realize that when they kick out one piece of their body, they say, hey, if I can do that when I want, if I want to move over here, I can pick up this leg, and then I can move this one over here. And they learn that by moving their legs. They learn they could shuffle forward a little bit. Eventually, they can crawl, and then they can learn to creep, and then they learn to walk, and then they learn to run, jump. You get the point. But the crawling stage is very important. So in order to maximize this process, to speed up the process, you need the maximum opportunity to learn these things. And it really makes sense if you think about it. So if the child is on the floor more, it has more time to learn these things. So they're saying for brain injured children particularly, they should sleep on the floor. They should be on the floor all day. And then the only time that you pick them up is when they're distressed and when they need comfort. And then the rest of the time, they need to be in that maximum growth time. So today, as you can see, Esther's 5 years old and she's thriving. She's improved in every area. She can read words, read sentences, and she's even started reading books. Now, something else that was interesting that we'll come to in a second, I want to do another exercise. So I want everyone to stand up because I want you to pretend you're a shotgun or a rifle, okay? So I want you to shoot this target with your weapon. So I know it's a tiny target. We're going to put the sight up in your front hand. So use the thumb of your front hand as your front sight. So imagine whatever hand you would hold the barrel of a shotgun or a rifle, just hold it right now with that hand, and then put the thumb up and make believe that's a sight. And I want you to put that thumb right on the bullseye, okay? So your trigger hand is back. Now you're going to pull the trigger with this one. That's it. So get the back arm up, okay? I wish I could see you all, but I'm sure you guys look great, all right? Now I want you to hold the sight up and close one eye because you want to take real good aim. And so make sure you get that aim. Close the eye. Make sure your thumb is right on the target, okay? Now just think for a second. Which eye did you close? Just think about that, and then open that eye and keep it fixed on the target, okay? So now you should have both eyes open. Now close it again, and now open it. And now close it, and now open it. Now in your mind, just think, what happens to the thumb when you do that? Just think about that for a second. Now close the other eye and keep the other one open. So if you were closing your left eye to aim, I want you to open the left eye and close the right eye, okay? Now see what happens to the thumb when you do that. And then open it again so you have both eyes open and see what happens to your thumb, okay? Now I want you to close that eye again and go from one to the other, okay? Do it a couple times, okay? So now what's happening there? You guys could sit down. This is very interesting. When you were born, most of you were born with how many eyes? And I'm sure you're probably laughing. 2. Excellent, right? Most people have 2 eyes. 2 eyes is 2 cameras, isn't it? So you have 2 cameras. How many pictures do you get with 2 cameras? 2, right? You get 2 pictures. Now, somewhere along our development, those 2 pictures become 1. One takes over as the master, and then one becomes a backup, if you like. And that's how we develop our stereoscopic vision. So we appreciate depth, and more accurately, we can peep the things in front of us. And it's a process that just happens over time. And again, the institute that I mentioned before says that if your baby is on its back staring up at nothing, then there's much less information for their eyesight. You know, babies, when they're born, their vision's actually poor. They make their parents, at this seminar, they actually put a tissue over their eyes and look out, and they say, that's what a baby sees. They've got very poor vision. But when you look at the light, you can then see the difference. Young children, they get very excited when they see bright lights because it's something registering in their mind. On contrast, black and white as well, it also makes a difference. So by being on the floor face down, they've got something to see up close and to see with their eyes. And then that process that we just walked through becomes quicker. And the reason I mention it is, who actually remembers doing that as a baby? Probably nobody, right? Those of you who are parents, when did you teach this to your children or to your baby? When did you actually say, okay, son, daughter, now make sure you put the 2 to the 1? It doesn't happen, does it? It happens on its own. And so the neurological process that I was just talking about, it happens on its own. So why is this important? We learn a lot of stuff without being consciously involved in it. Okay? We learn a lot of stuff without being consciously involved in opportunity can speed up how quickly we learn it. So you could say two things. Opportunity and repetition are important for learning. And remember, all of this is within the program for development of speaking skills. And we'll see how it fits in together in a moment. So remember, opportunity, and even opportunity, time, and repetition equals learning. So question, where do we stop? Where do we stop learning? Anybody? Where do we stop learning? Death. Great answer. We don't. That's right, Chad. We never stop learning. I was actually, my wife and I, we do some rehabs on homes for real estate investments. And it was a friend of mine. He told me a story of when he was doing a kitchen floor. He put down a wooden floor a few years ago, and he thought it was going to be pretty simple, but he recognized very quickly it was a lot more work than he had anticipated. And instead of him taking 2 or 3 days, it actually took about 2 to 3 weeks. And so for 2 to 3 weeks, you got to imagine this guy, he had his knees on a wooden floor without wearing knee pads. And so it's kind of stupid, but he said he did it, and then he recognized that it was bad afterward. But what happened shortly after that, his knee swelled up, and he stopped using it completely. And for about 6 months, he couldn't do any exercise, and he was just resting it, but he couldn't do anything, and then it didn't get better. And so after 6 months, he finally said to himself, well, my knee is not getting better. I probably need to go to physical therapy. So he went to PT, and they put an ultrasound machine on it. They massaged it. They put ice bags on it. And then another 6 months went by after that. It didn't get any better, right? So now he's like, okay, now this is really serious. So he goes to a doctor, and he tells the doctor what's going on. And I laughed because he told me the doctor gave him some ibuprofen and some painkillers and said, rest it, it'll get better. And when I was in the military, that just seemed to be the universal cure for everything. But it still didn't get better. He's like, Mike, it's 12 months. It was getting worse. Nothing was happening. And so eventually he decided he had to go see a specialist. So we're talking about 18 months after the fact. And finally they did an MRI, did an x-ray, and then he was there with the specialist, and the specialist kind of gave him a funny look. And he told me, he said, come here. He said, look in the mirror and tell me, what do you notice? And my buddy looks in the mirror, and he said he was totally shocked. He completely believed that he hadn't noticed it before, but the leg that was hurt was literally half the size of his other leg. And so it completely changed. It shrunk over that period of time. And he's like, my goodness, look at this. And he's like, is this because my knee is injured? And then he said the specialist looked at him with a stone cold look in his face, look in his eye, and says, there's nothing wrong with your leg. And he's like, what do you mean there's nothing wrong with my leg? He goes, I'm limping on it. I can't walk. It's painful. It's interrupting everything I do. I'm stuck. And so he said, the specialist says, okay, show me your limp. So my buddy starts doing this limp. He starts walking forward, and the specialist has got his arms crossed. He's got his hand under his chin. He goes, interesting. He goes, okay, that's very interesting. Now walk backwards for me. And so he started walking backwards, and he began to put pressure on his leg. And the specialist says, you see that? And he goes, see what? He's like, what? He goes, you're not limping when you walk backwards. And that's how I can tell whether it's a hardware problem or a software problem. And he's like, I didn't buy it, but he goes, so what do I do? And he says, well, you need to unlearn that new limp that you've been doing, because what you've done is while your leg was injured, you actually took all the weight off the leg. And then you had to keep walking, so you kept walking. And what do you do with that repetition if you keep doing something? We mentioned it before, you learn it. And he said, you learn a new way of walking. The original injury is gone, but now you've created a new problem. And my buddy's like, okay, so what do I do? And he said, you've got to unlearn it. You've got to go back, and you've got to learn to walk. You've got to relearn again to walk the old way. And you've got to build muscle back up to what it was before. And he didn't believe it, but it took 3 years. And eventually my buddy got back to walking normally, and his leg went back up to normal size. And he originally thought it was going to hurt, but as he went to build up the muscle, it went back to normal. So it's really interesting, but what do we take from this in this context? You know, we all said already tonight, we never stop learning through repetition, right? We never stop the process of learning through repetition. And sometimes we learn things automatically that really aren't helpful to us, and we may not want, but we learn them anyway. So have a look at this for a second, okay? What happens if we stop learning, okay? Who's that? Anybody? Who's that just came up on the screen? Who recognizes that character? That is T-Rex. You absolutely got it. Okay. Who's that? Who's that guy next to him? That's a mouse. Okay. So this little mouse right here weighs, I don't know, a few ounces. The T-Rex, however, is what? It's 7 to 8 tons, runs extremely fast, got a more powerful bite than a great white shark. So who's the bigger or the stronger? T-Rex or the mouse? T-Rex. That's not a trick question. I think T-Rex is bigger, and we can all agree that he's stronger than the mouse. But who would have put money on the mouse 65 million years ago to still be around today rather than the dinosaur, right? What happened to the dinosaur? Where did they all go? You know, they were resistant to change. They stopped learning, and they didn't suit their environment, and so they just disappeared. But I'm afraid to say it's not just dinosaurs, right? Who's that guy over there? Okay, do you remember this guy? Do you remember what happened to Enron? What happened to him a long time ago? Ken Lay, you got it, all right? And then what about this? Who used to carry one of these Nokia phones? Everyone had a Nokia not a long time ago, right? But what happened? They all disappeared. They all disappeared because they didn't learn. They all stopped learning. They didn't make the change, right? Without learning, without making that change, you will disappear, okay? So anybody know who this guy is? Anybody know who this character is right here? Probably not, okay? His name is Eric Hoffer, and what does Eric Hoffer say? He says, in a world of change, the learners will inherit the earth, while the learned will find themselves perfectly suited for a world that no longer exists. See, most of us have the wrong information about speaking. You know, we've learned to a certain point, but then we stop. And if we have the wrong information about speaking, it stops us. And actually, we just avoid speaking completely. Then we never develop the skill through repetition. All right, who's this guy? Who's he? Let's see if you know who this guy is. Very famous. Mr. Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking says, the greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it is the illusion of knowledge, okay? That's really interesting because we think we know, but we really don't know, and that's the problem. So we've got conviction in something that's not right, okay? And then this gentleman, Alvin Toffler, he put it this way. The literate in the 21st century would not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And that's the key, isn't it? We need to keep learning, but in order to keep learning, we need to unlearn some stuff that we've learned that's got us to where we are, right? So before talking about the growth of a business, you know, could be meteoric. But in order to move on and really grow that, we all need to unlearn some things and relearn some new things to reach the top. And it's not as easy as it sounds, because learning is kind of an external. It's external, it's easy. We do these things sometimes without consciously being aware of it. We do things and we learn. But unlearning is internal, and that's much more difficult. We've got to undo stuff that we've developed sometimes subconsciously over time, and it's still a puzzle, but it takes more energy than it usually does. And if you can capture that and you can become an expert at unlearning, you're going to be unusually successful. So we're going to do another exercise, and now this is going to be a competition, all right? So I know some of you guys are probably excited because we got some competition here. So what we're going to do, this is going to be a timed competition. So you're going to need a timer of some sort. Now, if you have a partner at home, go ahead and yell help for them right now, because they'll come over and help you. You know, I'm just kidding. Don't yell at them. But if you've got someone, it'd be great. If not, go ahead and pull out like an iPhone or your phone and get a timer on there. All right. So here we're looking for the fastest person. Okay. So what we're going to do is you're just going to say the color the word is written in. Okay. So you start at the top and go red, yellow, black, blue, green, purple. Okay. All the way down, and then go up to the top again and do it. Okay, then go on to the next one and the next one and the next one. You're going to do it as quickly as you can, but you have to go through every word. And if you miss one or you get it wrong, you have to go back and then carry on, okay? So this is a time test, all right? Is everybody ready? If you guys are ready, go ahead and raise your hand so I know you're ready. All right, we got one person, two, all right. Everybody get there, almost there. Everybody's almost ready. Everybody's almost got a timer. Still waiting on a couple of people. All right. All right, got one more. Okay. All right, so I'm sure we've got everybody now. Okay, so remember guys, this is a time test. It's a competition. On your marks, get set, go. All right, everybody should be wrapping up shortly. Okay, is everybody finished? All right, when you're finished, go ahead and raise your hand and write down your time. Go ahead and put your time in the box. See how fast you did it. All right, excellent. You got 21, almost 22 seconds there. All right, go ahead, put your time in the box so we can see how awesome people are. All right, 23 seconds, 30. Excellent. This is great. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Julie. Don't worry, we're going to have another opportunity here in a second, okay? So everyone's finished, and write down your time too. Everybody write your time. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing again, but the next slide, the words and the colors don't match, okay? So you're going to do the same thing again, okay? I want you to say the color you see. Don't read the word. Say the color you see, okay? Does everybody understand? Say the color you see. Don't read the word. We're going to time it again, okay? On your marks, everyone ready? On your mark, wait, okay. If you're colorblind, say the color you see, all right? You can still play too, just in case, okay? Are you ready? Is everybody ready? Here we go again. 3, 2, 1, go. I wish we were all together. I could watch you guys doing this. I'm sure it's probably pretty funny right now. Okay, is everybody almost done? When you guys are done, raise your hand and write down your time. Everybody done? I'm sure all of your scores were pretty appalling, but is everybody finished? All right. All right. If you're go ahead and wrap it up. So really quick, I'm gonna lower everybody's hands here. Okay. I'm gonna lower your hands. Did anyone do the second in under? And I want you to raise your hand. Okay. If you did the second one in under 90 seconds, 90 seconds, go ahead and raise your hand. If you did it in under 90 seconds. Okay. Under 90 seconds. Excellent. Okay. If you did it under 70 seconds, keep your hand up. And if you didn't, if you did it under 70 seconds, keep your hand up. Okay. If you did it under 60 seconds, keep your hand up. Under 60 seconds, keep your hand up. Under 50 seconds. All right. Okay. Under 40 seconds or 45 seconds. All right. I think it was Dylan. 45 seconds. That's very impressive. If we could all give a round of applause to Dylan for being the fastest one there. Excellent job, my friends. All right. So why is this interesting then? Some of the things that we learn along the way, they can get in the way don't they? Quite significantly, as we just learned in this exercise. So even though in one context they can be extremely helpful, in another they can be extraordinarily unhelpful. Now, how many of you have ever seen a film, by show of hands, how many of you have ever seen a film with subtitles and you've been surprised how much you've enjoyed it? Okay, we got some people who've seen it, right? It's mad. It's mad, isn't it? If you think about it, you're watching a screen and you're basically reading for 90 minutes, right? So at the end you go, man, that was an awesome movie. But you're not watching the actors and you're not looking at the fine acting. You're not watching the cinematography. Now, you might be able to hear some of the music, but you're basically reading the lines. Like, how could you possibly enjoy that, right? Now, what about if you go to see a film in the cinema, not necessarily with the subtitles, but you just go and see a film on the big screen? Why is it so much more enjoyable on the big screen than just your itty bitty TV at home? Why would you say it's more enjoyable? We are fully immersive, okay? Anybody else? No distractions, right? No distractions, you're completely immersed. Okay, excellent. Now, let's see something. Does anybody remember this? Anybody remember what this is? Do people still use these? That's right. It's a protractor, Chad. Now, you're going to have to do this sitting down, okay? This is another quick exercise. I want you to hold your arms out to your sides and put them back. So you're kind of creating a T, okay? And I want you to pull them back depending on your shoulder flexibility. You might want to put them out of sight, like behind you. So fix your gaze forward. So look directly in front of you, stare at the screen, and I want you to move them back so you can't see your thumbs wiggling. So I want you to start wiggling your thumbs, and then move your arms forward just a little bit until you become aware that even though you're looking forward, you can still see your thumbs wiggling, okay? So everybody keep doing that until you're aware that your thumbs are wiggling. Okay, so for most people, it's about 170 degrees, maybe peripheral vision. So even though looking forward, you can study things in great detail, you're also aware of what's going on around you. So if you're looking at your little TV on the screen, even though you're trying to concentrate and you're looking intently on the screen, you're also aware of your wife or husband typing away on Facebook on their phone, or your kids picking their nose, and you're attempting to enjoy the film, but you're distracted by all these other things around you, right? So what does this mean, and why is this interesting? So we saw very, very briefly how the subconscious or the unconscious, or whatever you want to call it, runs some of our behaviors without us consciously thinking about it. But also, not only as a speaker does it control our behavior, the audience is taking in everything, whether they're aware of it or not. They're taking in everything. People say you never get a second chance to make a first impression, right? Because even before you've said anything, people are taking in everything in their subconscious. They get a feeling, they just get a feeling, and they recognize that, right? So Albert Morabian, anybody know who this guy is, or anybody know what he's famous for? Anybody? All right, Julie, what's he famous for? I'll give you a chance to answer. I know you're probably typing it. You just know he's famous. Okay, that's fine. Okay, he is famous for identifying, he did a study on communication, and in it, he identified 3 different areas. So anybody know what those 3 areas are based on the pictures? Can you take a guess what those 3 areas are when it comes to communication? Anybody take a guess, take a crack at it? What do you think the 3 pictures represent? Okay, nonverbal. Okay, some of them are not words, and nonverbal communication. Okay, close. I'll go ahead and give it to you here. So Albert Morabian he's the one that came up with the study that coined the phrase 93% of all communication is nonverbal. And so he breaks it down into 3 different areas. Your communication is determined by the words you use, by the voice and inflections, and then your body language, okay? So I want you to look at this for a second and just envision this as being communication, okay? So 7% from the particular study is the words that we use at the top. Okay, 7%. 38% is the tonality of how we use the voice. And 55% of what we do with our body while we're saying it. Now, if somebody stands up and says something, or even just in conversation, what do we believe? What do we give more sway to? The words I say or how I say it in the body language? Sometimes we believe what they say, but we always trust their body language, don't we? Right? So if you wanted to improve your ability to communicate, what should you be looking at hit? Based on this picture, what should you be looking at? Invest most of your time for the biggest reward. Where would it be? Body language, right? Body language is the key here. Now, you're certainly going to be under the water, but it wouldn't be the worst. But what do we do when we're forced to prepare? We're forced to present. Where do we spend all of our time normally preparing? What do we focus on the most? Words. You absolutely hit the nail on the head, Chad. People sit there and they pour over those words for 100% of their preparation time. And all they end up with is a speech that they can't remember. There's a lot more that can go wrong under the water. And you're much better off working on your voice and your body language rather than just the words. In fact, all of them together is what truly, truly works best. Now, if the words are not congruent with the voice and the body language, then it looks a little off at least, doesn't it? Or worst case, maybe a little shifty. But if they're there all together, if they're all congruent, and people look much more reliable, and we believe what they're saying, we even say that they're a natural speaker. So 3 key areas to look at this in a slightly different way. 3 key areas that are important for a speaker to be extraordinarily successful, okay? The first one is know thy audience, okay? Knowing thy audience is very critical, but also know thyself and know thy stuff. So the messenger, the message, and the audience, they're all critical pieces. Which is the most important, do you think? Out of those 3, what's the most important? Someone says stand yourself. If you're speaking to a group of people, who's more important, you or the group that you're speaking to? The audience, right? Who decides whether it was successful? It's the audience, isn't it? Right? So the speaker, some things we might then think about from a speaking perspective, character, right? Character of a speaker. We might think about the body language, the vocal delivery, the charisma, the personality, accessibility, vulnerability. All of those things will be considered, and all of those are the things that us as speakers have to work on, okay? Know thy audience. Where are they? How can we connect with them? What problems do they have? Are we interesting to them? I mean, not do we think we're interesting, but are we interesting to the audience? Are we credible to them? Is what we're talking about relevant to them? All of those things are important considerations. And then the message as well, right? Is it interesting? We're using stories, examples of humor. Is it exciting? Is it efficient? All of these things are really important. And probably this is the area where we spend the most time with people, because body language and voice, the audience, knowing thyself, those things, they do take time, and information can help a lot with that. But this really takes more time to be really, really impactful. And I think everyone has a story. Everyone has a story, and probably a story that the world could definitely benefit from. But they won't sit there. Your audience won't sit there and listen to you. They won't listen to you tell it unless you work hard in all of these areas to make it interesting and exciting and as efficient as possible. So if you do get it right, then people say you're a natural speaker. But what does Les Brown say about this? If you talk to him about a natural speaker, does anybody know what he says? Asking him, are there natural speakers? He says, show me a natural heart surgeon. And it's true. It's really true, isn't it? To be a natural heart surgeon, it's ridiculous. It takes a long time to be a heart surgeon. And guess what? It takes a long time to become as good as Les Brown as a speaker as well, right? So very quickly, let's just look at this idea of natural. So you're going to need a pen and paper, and I want you to divide it in half somewhere. So go ahead and just grab a scrap piece of paper, okay? And then divide in the middle, and you can write on the top and the bottom. So I want you to imagine that you're at a book signing. And this is going to be critical. I want all of you, this exercise, you got to take a picture and post it on Facebook, because you're going to look at this afterward and it's going to give you a lot of encouragement, especially if you're looking at writing a book or you have aspirations for being very famous one day. This right here, if you take this and you post it on there, it's going to give you great inspiration moving forward, okay? So I want you to imagine you're at a book signing and there's somebody standing there and they're bringing you your book to sign, all right? And you're going to say out loud, you're going to say, I love writing and I love signing my name while you write it. So you're going to say, I love writing and I love signing my name. You're going to say it while you do it. Everyone have their pen and paper ready? Show of hands. Just want to make sure you guys are all set. Everybody have a pen and paper? Okay. Chad, Dylan, everybody. This is very important. This is one of the most important exercises you're going to do tonight. Okay. So I want to make sure everybody is prepared. Okay. Everybody ready? Excellent. Okay. So you guys got your pen and paper. Okay. Great. All right. So one more thing really quick before we move forward. I want you to do it with your non-dominant hand. So if you're right-handed, put pen in the other hand. Okay. I want you to do it with your left hand. If you're left-handed, put it in your right hand. All right. Pay close attention to this, because what we're looking for natural. Okay. So with your wrong hands, after 3, is everybody clear? With your wrong non-dominant hand, write this and say it at the same time, okay? So with your non-dominant hand, you don't have to time it, okay? On your mark, get set, go. Man, I could just envision myself walking around all these tables right now, seeing all of your natural handwriting. What I'm really looking forward to is when you guys post this picture on Facebook. See how many people follow directions tonight. All right. I'm sure you guys are almost there, putting the dots on your last names and crossing the T's. Andrew's lucky because he doesn't have any T's or I's to dot in his last name. Okay. Is everybody about done writing their natural signature? Everybody done? Okay. If you're done, go ahead and wrap it up. All right. Now I want you to do the same thing again on the bottom part of the page, but this time swap hands. So this time you're going to do it with your natural hand. So you're signing the book and you're saying out loud while you write, I love writing and I love signing my name. And then you're signing your name. Okay. Ready? Go. Go ahead and write your name with your dominant hand on the bottom. Okay, this one should be pretty quickly. So everyone should be about finished with that. Okay. Does anybody, and raise your hand if you do, does anybody have 2 that are pretty much the same? Anybody? Okay. That would be far-fetched if we did. For most people, it's really much more frustrating and difficult with the non-dominant hand. It takes longer and the outcome is pretty poor. But why is this important? You know, when you first picked up a pen, and those of you with kids, when you see this every day when they're trying to write on the walls or on the furniture when they're tiny, they can't do this, can they? They don't have very good pen control. But at 6, 7, people gradually start getting better and better at writing. So we learn to do it with our right hand, and we haven't spent the time, obviously, to do it with our left. But it's the result of a process, isn't it? Did you look natural when you were writing with your good hand and signing it? Right? Of course you did. But you looked very forced with your non-dominant hand because you haven't spent that time. You haven't spent the time learning how to do it. So we have this idea that when we see people who are good at things, that it's genetic. But of course it's not. You know, when you see people who are natural, it's because they've spent time getting good at it, and it's habitual, okay? We look very natural at the things that are habitual, and they've delegated it to habit. They do it without thinking, and instead their mind is free to think about something else or do something else while they're doing it efficiently. Now, given that there's so much going on when you speak with your voice and your body and the audience and the words, trying to remember and everything else, we need to delegate some of that stuff to habit. We can't do it all consciously, and while we're standing up and speaking, we have to delegate some of that stuff to habit. That's where some kind of experience or practice comes into play to establish those habits. So Something else that people often say, and I love this because it just drives me, it makes me think. I just want to speak from the heart. I just want to speak from the heart. What does that actually mean when people say that? What does it really mean? Tell me. When they say I want to speak from the heart, what does that mean? Authentic. We got authentic. I don't want to have to plan it. Yeah, if we don't have to plan it, it's a heartfelt disaster, right? Now, the early Greeks, they referred to the subconscious mind as the heart of hearts. So you could say, I just want to speak from the heart. I just want whatever is in me to pour out. Sort of what Andrew was alluding to, right? I just wanted to pour out. And if you think about it, that could work as a strategy depending on what's in there. So if you got a lot of experience, maybe some good stuff is going to come out. Personally, I still think it's a high-risk strategy and not very consistent, but it could work. Here's what John Maxwell says about this. He says, let me tell you what I think about speaking from the heart. When you speak from the heart, it's a good way to connect with the audience. And it's a great way to connect with the audience because you're vulnerable, you're real, and people like that. But the trouble is, if you've been speaking for 5 minutes and no one's taking any notes, you're not serving the audience, are you? You're not coming out with the good stuff. So that doesn't really work as a strategy for most people most of the time. I watched Roddy Galbraith, who's the speaker trainer for the John Maxwell team, interview John on stage one time. And Roddy said to John, well, it's interesting. When I see you speak, the bit that I enjoy the most sometimes when you seem to put it, your presentation on one side, you just stop, then you get up and you play with the audience and interact with them. And it seems to be very intuitive. And John said, I like that. I like to play with the audience. And I think that's what really separates really great speakers from other speakers. But the interesting thing is, though, he said to Roddy, he said, I didn't do that for the first 15 years as a speaker. So just think about that for a second. 15 years he stuck to the plan of what he'd set out. And only after that time did he feel he could actually interact with the audience. So do you know how much of his time he actually interacts with the audience? Right now, it's about 10%. So 10% of the time when you see him speak, the rest of it is what he's planned out and practiced and prepared to go over. Now, I think if anyone could speak from the heart, it would definitely be John, right? But he doesn't. He practices, he prepares, because that's the level he's on. He's a professional. What else could it be? What else could it be that people say? This is another great one that I know you guys are going to love. People say, I'm a person of faith. So it could be, I'm a person of faith. I'm just going to stand up there and you know what? I'm going to allow the Lord to move through me and tell me what they need to do, right? What would happen if someone took that same approach, but they took it with a piano and said, you know what? I'm a person of faith. I'm just going to stand here and I'm just going to play music and give them the music that they need right now. Do you play the piano? No. Have you practiced playing the piano? No. How likely is it that what they need is going to come out? Big fat zero, right? It's exactly the same thing as speaking. Just because you practice a speech, it doesn't mean you can stand up and speak and command an audience's attention without practicing and preparing. Someone once asked John if he asked God for help when he prepares a presentation. And he said, I definitely do, but I make sure I go to him having done my best first. So I prepare all I possibly can, and I make sure I've got John's best. And when I've got John's best, then I ask for help, whether it's throw it all out or make minor changes. And he said, normally it's just make minor changes, but I don't ask for help without doing my best first. Otherwise, it's just lazy, really, if you think about it. So speaking from the heart, I'm not so sure that that's a good strategy, and certainly not if you don't have a great deal of experience to draw from. So one thing that's interesting about speaking from the heart is this. Musashi said 400 years ago, you can only fight the way you train. Okay, think about that for a second. You can only fight the way you train. And if you put it another way, you can only speak the way you practice. You can only present the way you prepare. So if you're going to speak standing up, don't practice sitting down. And if you're going to speak out loud, don't practice in your head. If you're going to use words, don't practice on paper, right? Try and get as close to the real thing as possible. So practicing out loud minus the real thing, I think, is the best way you should prepare. Even though it takes a reasonable amount of inertia to overcome sitting down and standing up and doing it when there's no audience, it's the best way to get good quickly. And I can tell you from experience, it really is. Now, most people complain to me that they enjoy the audience much more, and I totally get it. It's much more enjoyable when you can interact with an audience. But I'm sure tennis players, in the same fashion, they enjoy playing in a tournament much more than they do training. But they hit a lot of tennis balls, and I would imagine they hit a lot more in practice than they do in tournaments in order to win the tournaments, right? And that goes for all professional sports people, basketball, football, baseball, okay? You can only fight the way you train. I love that quote. Now, how many of you have learned words to a song, but just go back to that idea of repetition, okay? How many of you have learned the words from a song? And to answer your question, Chad, ever practice in front of a mirror? Yes, that's great. You can get in front of a camera and do that as well, okay? You can absolutely do that. But how many of you have ever just learned the words to a song, right? I'm sure plenty of us have, right? But here's another one. How many of you have learned the words to a song that you don't even like and don't even listen to, but somehow you just learned the words to that song? Somehow. How many of you can relate to that? I see a couple of hands going up, right? Repetition makes a difference, okay? Speaking in front of people, whether it's not a conversation back and forth, but you're standing up and you're speaking to people, it's a different set of skills. It really is. So I've got another interactive exercise for you, and this time I'm going to demonstrate it on camera, and I also want you to do it with me. So bear with me for a second. I'm gonna go ahead and get this set up so you guys can take a look at me here and make sure everybody can see me. All right, I'm gonna start my video here, right? Okay, hello everybody. So what I want you to do is we're gonna do a quick exercise with your hands, all right? So you've got your left and your right hand out right here in front, right? I want to make sure that everybody can see me here. Excellent, okay? So I want you to put your left hand down at your side, and I want you to take your right hand. I just want you to turn it like this, okay? I want you to turn it in a circle, all right? Get that exercise, get that lactic acid out, okay? Drop the hand to your side, all right? Shake it out. Now I want you to take your left hand, and I want you to go in the left direction, okay? So turn in the direction of the left. So you're turning, you're turning, you're turning, you're turning, you're turning, okay? That arm rotation out. All right, excellent. Shake it out. Okay. Now I want you to take both of them and I want you to turn in opposite directions like this. Okay. Anybody find that challenging at all? Anybody found that challenging to turn at the same time in opposite directions? Anybody? Nobody. Good. Okay. I'm going to clear this out. Now I'm going to try something a little bit different here. Now I want you to put your left hand out your side. I want you to take your right hand. And instead of going like this, I want you to roll it forward. Okay, so roll it like this, like you're speaking out loud, like you're projecting your voice. I want you to roll your hand forward. Okay, so roll it. You're getting some good exercise in your hands, blood flow, more oxygen to your muscles. It's healthy for you, right? Okay. All right, you can drop that hand. I want you to take your left hand, and I want you to go backwards this time. So like you're smelling that Thanksgiving turkey that's coming up in a couple of weeks, I want you to go ahead and just waft it. Just smell the turkey, okay? Just do this a couple more times. Get all that exercise in there, okay? I want you to stop now, okay? Now, with these two hands in front of you, I want you to go forward and backwards simultaneously, okay? So I want you to move backwards with one, move backwards with your left hand, and forwards with your right hand, okay? So you should be doing this, all right? How many of you are having trouble doing that? I know sometimes I go like, I don't want you to go forward, I want you to go backwards. So some people have, it's actually more difficult than you think, okay? So I just wanted you to I wanted to give you a visual of that because it's kind of harder to explain a little bit, okay? So now, would you be able to do it if you practice? You could. If you practiced over time, you could get very excellent at doing that, right? So speaking is similar to speaking in conversation, right? But there's some differences that you need to think about. The best way that I could think to move forwards is preparation, followed by preparation, complemented by preparation, and lastly, preparation, okay? So hopefully you guys got that down, right? Richard Klein said, confidence is preparation. Everything else is beyond your control. But your ability to prepare is within your control. And then there's confidence that comes from being properly prepared. So if you prepare and you practice, any anxiety you feel gradually dissipates and your confidence builds. And you can't control anything else, but you're responsible for your effort if you really think about it. You're responsible for the effort, but not necessarily the result. All you can do is your best, and the best way is to prepare. Okay? This one is from Bill Grove. He was often asked, you make it look so easy when you're speaking. And Bill Grove said, you'd be surprised how hard I make it look that way. Okay? Jimmy Durant, he says, nobody realizes how I work 18 hours a day for a month to make that hour of TV look like it's not been rehearsed, which is very interesting. It's the same thing. Practice, 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 practice. Everything changes if you practice, okay? Everything changes if you practice. Now, someone once asked John Maxwell, what's the key to holding the audience's attention? And he thought for a minute and he said, well, let me put it to you like this. It doesn't take a lot more to be interesting, but it does take more. It does take more to be interesting to the audience. And what does that look like then? Just to finish off here. When John is interesting in front of an audience, what does it look like? Okay? So this is from an 88-minute keynote speech that John did back in August of 2012. He broke it down into 35 different components, and this was a fantastic presentation. So the different symbols, the PS at the top is for personal story. So you can see he starts out personal story, personal story. He tells a statistic. He reads off of one of his laminated cards, and then there's a teaching piece. Then 3 more personal stories, another laminated card, another teaching piece. Then 2 more personal stories, another laminated card. Now the HEs, they're hypothetical examples. So this is where you make up something. So a personal story is 5 years ago, I was traveling the world. So it's very specific. It's a specific story where something happened. A hypothetical example is, imagine if you have a nail in your hand. It's a made up story, okay? So you guys see the difference? So a similar type of story, but not a real personal story. So 2 of those, then another teaching point, and it goes on and on. So if you look at this, that's how John creates the magical experience that you enjoy when you see him. But the interesting thing about it is, the interesting part of all of these, there's 15 personal stories. Only that one at 5 minutes and 7 seconds and the one at 5:33, they're the only 2 that were over 5 minutes. So the average story is about 2 minutes and 59 seconds, give or more or take. So John doesn't use any story. He uses stories that are crafted. They work very, very well, suited to the audience, that are very impactful and enjoyable. And if you look at this all together, this big piece here on the right is those personal stories, so sort of the pink color. And if you add this bit here, which is the hypothetical example, sort of the red on the left side, that's about 63% of the time he's telling one story of another kind. And if you add in the laminated cards where he's reading somebody else's story typically, that's about 3/4 of the time he's telling stories of one kind or another. And that's pretty interesting, isn't it? Now, you don't realize this when you just see him speak. You enjoy the experience, but that's how he does it, right? This bit here, this 13%, that yellow, that's the teaching piece. That's just pure teaching. And that's the goodness that we think that we're coming for, but it's just that little bit out of all his presentation. Just that 11 minutes and 29 seconds of him is teaching, right? So now, what do most people do when they want to take some of John's materials and put it together in a presentation, okay? They look at it and say, well, I'm going to take out the personal stories. I'm going to take out the jokes because they're corny. I'm going to take out John's personality, and then there's my presentation. This is absolute gold, 88 minutes. And they're like, 88 minutes. What am I going to do? So they say, okay, I got to speak for an hour, so I'll do 15 minutes of Q&A, and I'll need another 37 minutes. So what am I going to do? You know what? Just the thing. I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through all of John's other programs, and I'll take all of his bits, talk about over-deliver, right? The trouble is, the audience is like this, and they're like, get me out of here. Why? Because it doesn't work. Teaching it like this doesn't work. It's boring. People go on and on and on without mixing it up a bit, and then people do this and they fall asleep. And he's not going to buy anything from you, is it? So we've got to be interesting. We've got to be more interesting. So how do we do that? It's real simple. You avoid the flat lines, okay? You need to spike some energy in the audience, spike some energy, shift in the emotion, have something like an aha moment, have something funny, have something surprising that catches the audience by surprise, and they don't know where it's going. But more than likely, humor is probably the best because people love to enjoy themselves, and something as sad as well, that can work too. So anything to mix up the energy continually keeps it interesting, and they're referred to as payoffs: the aha, the funny, the shock, and the sad. It keeps the audience alive, awake, and engaged. So what's your next step? You know, if you want to further develop your speaking skills, what's the next step? So what I'd like to introduce you all to here tonight is the Maxwell Speakers Club, the International Maxwell Speakers Club. This is an opportunity where you're going to be able to learn to communicate and connect. And again, this is not just only for people who have an aspiration to be speakers in front of people. This is for folks who want to become leaders, folks who want to harness leadership skills, who want to learn how to effectively communicate with not only their colleagues, not only acquaintances, their family, their spouses, their children. This is going to give you the opportunity to learn from one of the best speakers in the business, understanding how he does it, and be able to apply that yourself. Now, for all of you that have taken the time out of your schedule to attend tonight, I want to give you guys something special. There's an ebook that I've worked with someone to put together that is going to take your leadership and your ability to communicate to the next level. So even you're going to get, there's one specific piece in there. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You're going to have to read it. But that one piece right there, if you applied that immediately in your family, in your business, you are going to take your leadership to a level that you've probably never seen before. So as just a gift for you guys taking the time out to do this, I'm going to give it to you and email it out to you directly following this. Normally, it'd probably be right at about $100, but I'm going to give it to you guys complimentary as a token of my appreciation. And it won't go out to anybody else. So if you didn't attend, even if you registered and you didn't attend, you don't get the book. So hopefully you guys will appreciate it. You're absolutely welcome. You guys are absolutely welcome here. So the International Maxwell Speaker Club, there are 26 Maxwell methods of speaking. Okay, there's 26 different things. What we focused on tonight is number 20, the entertainment, the education, the experience, which is just a very tiny piece of that. But as you can see, there's 26 elements to being a very effective connector of people. And over the course of time, we're going to do this. We're going to learn how John uses all of these skills in different keynote speeches that he does. And so what you can expect from this, okay? You're going to get the support and encouragement from myself. You're going to get teachings from the master communicator, John himself. And what we're going to do is we're going to have some experiential learning through speeches, okay? So we're going to go through on a weekly basis. We're going to meet on a weekly basis. We're going to go through some of the speeches and keynotes that John's done, and we're going to give live feedback and critique. So every week, some of you are going to have the opportunity to get on a camera, on a microphone, and practice. Maybe you have a 3, 4, or 5 minute speech that you want to deliver. Maybe you have to prepare a presentation. Maybe you're pitching a business opportunity to somebody. You're going to have an opportunity to get in front of a camera and deliver that. And then you're going to get live critiquing and feedback every week there. So everyone will have an opportunity to do it. We're going to do practical weekly topics. So every week we're going to cover one of those 26. And then we're going to have some assignments to help you really master the art of connecting with people and communicating. And then for those of you who are very ambitious, you can participate in the World Speaking Championships that are offered by the John Maxwell Speakers Club International. So the beauty about this is that you can start at any time. It's a monthly membership fee, so you can jump in and jump out as frequent as you like. You're going to be able to learn and grow through that. So part one of the meeting is about modeling excellence, where we'll take a look at that keynote. We'll watch a presentation from John. We'll have a lesson that I'll provide you with extracted key points that you'll have to be able to study. Then we'll do some application and experiential growth, where you'll be able to get in front of the microphone and the camera and speak to people. Some people can give some impromptu speeches if they like, and be able to communicate that. And then the progress, the recognition, and takeaways. So I see a hand up. Chad, is there a question that you have? No question. Okay, I'm going to drop it. Sorry. So the one thing that I wanted to be able to offer here tonight, just exclusively to this group of people that are here, if speaking and communicating and connecting is something that you're absolutely serious about, and you're like, Mike, I really want to be able to connect with people, and I just want to take this to a higher skill, then what I've done is I've given quite a substantial discount to the annual membership. And what this means is, for that price there, and this is going to expire at midnight tonight, for that price there, you'll be able to connect weekly from 60 to 90 minutes, depending on how many people are engaged at the meeting. You'll be able to practice this weekly. You'll be able to develop your coaching skills weekly. We will meet together on a weekly basis, okay? So if you look at the monthly cost, that's pretty much $5 a week for you to spend 60 to 90 minutes learning and incorporating these speaking skills. And so at this point, there's really three types of people that are here tonight. So the third type of person is the one that says, Mike, remember that natural speaker you were talking about at the beginning? That is definitely me. I think this was great, but I'm a natural speaker and I don't need any help. And so I hope that you learned something from this, and I'm thoroughly excited for you, and I can't wait to see how excellent you do out there. I bless you, and I hope that you are able to deliver exactly what you're looking for, what your audience is looking for. The second type of person is the person that says, this sounds really good, but I need to think about it. I got to talk to my wife, my brother, my sister, my dog, and I really need to contemplate whether or not this is for me. And the reality is, this is something you really need to think about. How important is it for you to be able to communicate effectively with your family? How important is it to be able to communicate as a CEO, as a leader to your staff? How important is it for you to be able to communicate and cast vision for your legacy? How important is it for you to be able to connect with people on a daily basis? And then there's that number one person that says, Mike, I want to be a communicator. No, you know what? I want to be a connector. I want to be able to connect with people in a way that I've never been able to before, and I'm in. And as a matter of fact, I'm not just in, I'm all in. That is who I'm looking for in the speaker club. Those people that are all in are going to be able to take these skills along with what you're going to learn in that ebook that I'm going to send you afterward. You're going to be able to take that to the next level. So if that's something that you're looking to do, I'm going to go ahead and type this here in the chat box. For the next 3 or so hours, you'll have an opportunity to go ahead and register to join the International Maxwell Speaker Club. Again, this is something that has just been launched. There are not very many available, and as a matter of fact, you can only be an executive director of the John Maxwell team to be able to do this. And so because this is something that's so important, because many people have often said, I want to be a better communicator and a better connector, I've made a decision to invest an hour to 90 minutes weekly to help anybody who wants to develop their speaking skills and become a connector to be able to go and do this. So I'm about to put this up in the chat box. If you guys go to that link right there, it'll take you to the page where you can either take advantage of the annual membership or you can join for the monthly membership. And so again, for the monthly membership, it'll be prorated for this month. And then it's actually going to kick off on November 1st. So November 1st, next week we're going to start. So next week you'll be able to take advantage of that every month. At the first of the month, it'll be $19.97. And then following that, if you decide to do an annual membership, it's one time and you can attend every single week. I will also mention that all of these meetings, if you can't attend, they will be recorded and put in a place where you can go back and listen to them. So even if you're not able to make it, you're still going to capture the content and watch other people be able to speak, hear those critiques, so you can take those and use those pieces of evaluation as things that you can put in your repertoire to help you develop. So with that being said, I just want to thank you all so very much for taking the time out, coming here tonight. I know I said it was 60 minutes. Sometimes I just get very passionate about want to deliver. I want to make sure I got you everything. So again, thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your evenings to spend it here with me. I hope that this was very informative. I hope that you learned a lot. I hope that there's at least one thing that you can take from here. And if you guys can do me one favor, if you can go on Facebook tonight and just say, what one thing you learned from here tonight that you're going to apply immediately to help you be a better communicator and connector with people, that would really inspire me and encourage me to continue doing this. So with that being said, guys, thank you so much. Have a blessed evening, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.